our head coach of our local football program, Bronco Mental.
The details themselves with the right preparation can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, yeah, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the Pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
Play fake by McCamey. Looking downtown. Touchdown! Basket! "47 yards for the score.
Here's what they're in 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends. And it's McCamey to basket. That's it. Now watch. Gordon does a pretty good job. He doesn't get his hands on him. He fell that little stutter. I like what he's doing, but he's got to keep his eyes on the receiver. As soon as
I got to hit you with the triple hey there. I don't know if those work, though. Hey, my name's Ryan. Hey, my name's Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. A lot to get to today. We'll recap Arizona and UNM, which was a very exciting game to watch. and I've sort of changed my tune on UNM, and I did not win minus 29.5 or 30.5, whatever I got it at. So at least I didn't say I was going to eat dog shit. Got to get to, yeah, we'll talk about that too. Ben Weissong at 9 o'clock, and then we'll talk about some headlines and other action around the Mountain West as well as the nation. And I'm glad somebody mentioned Diego Pavia because I took notes today and I forgot to put it in there. We'll touch on that. I'm joined by the usual suspects, and I'll introduce them. My business partner in this endeavor, Mr. Eric Malton. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm good, Ryan. Really interesting first weekend college football kickoff, week one. A lot of great games, a lot of surprising games, and a lot of fireworks. So, looking forward to chatting it up with you guys.
All the way from the Bay Area. He's a two-time offensive state lineman for San Juan Mendoza and the St. Pius Sartans. Played for Damian Segura. And he paid a lot of money to go to the NFC title game, as we were just learning, which was 8 months ago. His name is Richard. I butchered that. His name's Ricky Thompson.
Richard.
Whoops. Let me do it again.
Richard.
Rick, how you doing?
I'm doing good, guys. I'm happy that football's back. NFL's starting up. I think we now have like 20 some odd weeks of straight Saturday and Sunday football. So let's all be grateful that we made it to this precious time of year. And let's get talking about it. Excited to be here, man.
Very excited. Everybody's like, oh, the NFL's here, man. The college football did it for me. He's been a Lobo fan since 1970. He's been with us since the beginning of when we started this on just a podcast a year and almost 2 years ago. He's the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. His name's Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing today?
Doing great, guys. The Western New Mexico dropping their opener to UT Permian 41-3. They've got Adams State Saturday, and then New Mexico Highlands a week after that. So kind of tough sledding for the Mustangs in their first game. But hey, I was really optimistic about the Lobos game on Saturday, and looking forward to talking about it.
All right. Before we move on, I got to pay a couple bills. I appreciate all of our sponsors: Hydro Bar, Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, and Affordable Service, not to be confused with Affordable Solar. Affordable Service Heating, Plumbing, and Air Conditioning for your HVAC needs in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. Affordable Service has been in business in New Mexico since 1986, and it's still locally owned. During that time, they've served more than 40,000 customers, providing complete residential, light, commercial HVAC services that include heating, cooling, electrical, and plumbing. Affordable Service takes pride in their staff and their commitment to Albuquerque in the Rio Rancho community. I forgot to do it. I want to get to Diego Pavia first. He threw for 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interception. I forgot to put it on our slide. We're doing a new thing where we do like a rundown. We haven't come up with a name for it. We've been doing it about a week now. And Virginia Tech beat Vanderbilt as a 13.5-point underdog, I believe. Yeah, 13.5. 34-27. They did it in overtime. Tech was down and rallied in the second half to tie the game at 20 all, I believe, or no, 27 all. Vanderbilt missed a field goal at the end. I got to give it to Diego Pavia, man. He is a gamer. That was a really big win for Vanderbilt. My thing, though, is they beat Tech. They get Alcorn State, Georgia State. Then they go to Missouri, Alabama, at Kentucky, Ball State, Texas, South Carolina, at LSU, and then they always play their rival Tennessee. I would probably say they're probably looking at 4 or 5 wins. That Missouri, Alabama, Kentucky, Ball State, Texas, they beat Ball State. That lineup there is a bit rough. Then they go to Auburn and LSU. I'll start with this. I'll just throw it out there. Did any of you guys watch that game? Rick, you were shaking your head. Just your thoughts on Diego Pavia.
Yeah, it was 11 a.m. local start time. Pretty tough for Tech. Like you mentioned, they were favorites. And coming into the game, Vanderbilt is only favored in Vegas to win 2.5 games on the year. So now you're looking pretty good if you bet on that after week 1 here. But yeah, Pavia's toughness was shown both with his running and throwing. And of course, he was talking his smack, which he loves to do. And a great start for them. Vatek kind of fell on their heels early, like you said. And then in overtime, they had their backup quarterback in and just couldn't really get a good look on that final play. So great start by Pavia and Coach Kill. And they were talking about it nationally today, Kirk Herbstreit and Pat McAfee on his show. So he's getting a lot of love nationally and a really good start for him.
Yeah, man, he's really fun to watch. Competitor, grinds out plays. You mentioned, right, 190 yards, Ryan, but he also had 104 yards rushing. And every kind of important first down that they were needing to kind of keep sustaining drives, Diego Pavia somehow just was able to kind of extend that for them. And I think he ended up getting like offensive player of the week in the SEC as well. So, I mean, that's a big deal. And to kind of springboard Vanderbilt kind of into the conversation, they're not going to be a bottom of the SEC program anymore, and definitely kind of injected some excitement, some energy back into that program. I think their schedule lines up pretty well for them in the next couple of weeks, man. They could easily be 3-0 and heading into some tougher competition. But on the broadcast, they did mention that with Jerry Kill coming over to Vanderbilt, he was also, I think his official title was some kind of like offensive analyst, something along those lines. But essentially, Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt were running the same exact offense that New Mexico State was running last year. So he's extremely familiar with it, understands how to navigate it. It's a lot of run option, run zone option. He just runs it to perfection, man. And that guy's not afraid to tuck it and get upfield. And he's just seeking first down after first down. He also had some nice throws in there. So, like I said a couple weeks ago when we were talking about him, I'm looking forward. I'm kind of cheering for Vandy a little bit. I like to see them make some noise in the SEC.
I think the intangibles that he has, nothing about his game really jumps off the page. Not a great arm, not great speed. He makes football plays. He's a football player. You mentioned the yardage he gained through the air and with his legs. We saw him do that at New Mexico State. The other thing is he's a leader. People see that, the players see that, and they get behind him. And that makes a lot of difference. They said that they hadn't had a big crowd at Vanderbilt for a long time, and they had a big crowd on Saturday. So I'm rooting for him too. To be honest with you, I didn't like what he did at UNM. I didn't think that, I'm moved beyond that. I kind of wish New Mexico had taken a look at him. I'm glad they have Devin Dampier. Devin Dampier played great on Saturday night. I really am glad they have him. But in a way, I kind of wish New Mexico had looked at Diego Pavia. He's got a lot of things that a lot of players, the leadership qualities that you just can't teach, the intangibles. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on Vanderbilt as well.
And you're on mute, Ryan. So I'm just going to throw in one more comment. Vanderbilt does have a newer coach in Clark Lee, who came over as a DC from Notre Dame in 2021. So they got a good balance now of a defensive coach, and now Coach Kill infusing his ways. So I think they're going to be a better team than a lot of people had thought.
Sorry about that. Going to go to J-Rod. I'm going to go to the comments real quick. I know you guys are going to back Danny Gonzalez, but Diego should have been a Lobo. I mean, again, that was Danny, and it was kind of read between the lines that he didn't like his character. So you can do with that with what you will. We are going to go to, I guess, we need to come up with a name for this segment, but like our rundown of top stories, and we'll hit on the Mountain West, and we'll go here. It's nothing new. Florida State lost again last night. They're not just 0-2, they're 0-2 in the ACC. If you look closely at his picture, it's clearly AI. But at 321 Noel, he has since deleted his account, and he did it in the first quarter or second quarter last night. And again, this is nothing new or original that was last night or today. But if you haven't seen it, if Florida State loses to BC this weekend, I will eat dog shit out red Solo cup with a spoon and post a video of me doing it. Book it. And I was trying to queue up Judge Elihu Smalls, Judge Smalls from Caddyshack, where he goes, well, we're waiting. So everybody's hunting this down. The Barstool guys have been hard on him. I'm 50-50 on Barstool. They were hard on him. Yeah. They've been really rough and calling him out. Boston College won 28-13. They rushed the hell out of the ball. I thought that was funny. Rick, I feel like you would have a comment on the dog shit guy.
Just that's what DJ Ugalale's arm looks like right now. He's really looking bad, and they're probably going to have to go to another quarterback, or this Florida State-Florida game is going to be on Nickelodeon when they play each other, because it's going to be a joke.
Yeah. That feels pretty rough right now. Billy Napier couldn't open up a water bottle. He's a really good recruiter. I don't think he's that really good of a coach. But again, Florida State, their talk, unless they run the table. But again, they're just not 0-2 on the season. They're 0-2 in the ACC, and that's really rough. And they went with their backup quarterback. And I think he had a rough time last night. And I was going to set up my Caddyshack joke to Rodney Dangerfield, but it crashed and burned. So
what? So let's dance.
Got to hit the journey. I love that movie. All right. Ed, I don't know if you would appreciate that, but when I was cutting that music, I was thinking of you. All right. And then I've got to give it up to the U. Let's see if I can find Two Live Crew. Cam Ward threw for 385 yards, 3 touchdowns. He looked cool, calm, and collected. He makes a bonehead throw every now and then. He did throw an interception. Thank you, Two Live Crew. And number 19 dominated Florida 41-17 to give Coach Mario Cristobal one of his first signature wins in his 3rd season at his alma mater. He played there under Jimmy Johnson. I don't know what you're asking there, Eric. But I thought it was a big win for Miami. I love Miami. I thought it was awesome. Penn State, Drew Aller threw 2 touchdown passes in the second quarter. Nick Zilligamson rushed for 114 yards and a TD. And the number 8 Nittany Lions beat West Virginia 34-12 on Saturday. In the season opener, it was delayed. It was painful to watch for 2 hours. Aller, who I've kind of been critical of, he was 11 of 17 for 216 yards. One of their wide receivers, last name's Wallace, I can't think of his first name, caught 5 passes for a career high, 117 yards, all in the first half. And that was more than a half of his yardage for the entire 2023 season. I am sure Mama Thompson was happy, right, Rick?
Yeah, what a game, with a 2-hour break in between when they had to wait it out there. You would have thought that would have helped West Virginia, and everyone coming into this season is saying, oh, Penn State's receivers aren't great. They're not able to stretch the ball downfield. Well, I tell you what, Aller has really improved his passing, and he threw, a bunch of balls on a dime. He looks like he's a lot better. And I think Penn State has a chance, but what it always comes down to for Penn State is Ohio State and Michigan, who they can never beat. And those are going to be the 2 big bad wolves again, probably in the conference, among others. So Penn State looks good so far. They got their work cut out for them, but I think they got the weapons to make a run this year. And West Virginia sure didn't put up much of a fight. What did you think about it, Ryan, other than just Aller? You think Penn State can make a run?
Well, I was looking forward to Garrett Graham, the quarterback for West Virginia. They didn't look that all of that energy leading up to that game between Pat McAfee being there on Thursday, that crowd, and one of their biggest home openers in school history, or at least what was it, like 40 years. I thought they would have played better. That was a knock on them in the Big 12. They looked disjointed, and I don't think that the lightning, the delay helped, but Penn State might be more formidable of an opponent for Ohio State and Michigan. I wasn't impressed with Michigan. Then maybe Oregon. I know it's after 1 week. That was kind of the talk today nationally that I heard, and I thought about that on Saturday, and I told Jacob Neff that I thought they might give, they can't beat Ohio State and Michigan, but I think this is the year. I mean, what happened to them against Ole Miss? I can't believe they were favored against Ole Miss, I believe, in that Peach Bowl. That just shocked me. But they came out and punched West Virginia in the face. And I think had it probably not been for the delay, they might have scored more, but and then they kind of bent, but didn't break. Like West Virginia went down the field. They missed a couple field goals, I believe. They went for on fourth down. They looked horrendous. I was trying to think who we were watching that kept going for it on fourth down, and it was terrible. On Saturday, I don't know, it was very, very odd. Moving on nationally, Notre Dame. In College Station, Texas, Jeremiah Love broke the tie with a 21-yard touchdown with 1:54 left, and number 7 Notre Dame beat number 20 Texas A&M 23-13 on Saturday night in that opener for both teams. The Aggies had a chance to tie it, but Christian Gary, the cornerback for Notre Dame, jumped up and knocked down Connor Wegman's pass. The kind of the consensus on I was talking to Sean Ryder, the consensus on a lot of the Texas A&M boards was that Connor Wegman can only beat teams like New Mexico. And that was the actual quote. Quarterback Riley Leonard, who I love Marcus Freeman, the head coach, had a strong performance in his debut. Again, he's the Duke transfer. He threw for 158 yards and added 63 rushing. Did anybody, Eric, I know you're the Notre Dame fan. Neff,
Oh, yeah.
He's a little sick. He's under the weather tonight. Couldn't join.
I did. Neff actually hit that bet spot on too, because I know he took the under. Defensive battle for the most part of the game. Both teams have elite defenses, in my opinion. Texas A&M is going to be all right, man. They bring it. That stadium was rocking. I think they had like 107,000 there. But I was really impressed with the Notre Dame offensive line is really young this year, and that was kind of one of the bigger question marks. But they held up. They gave Riley Leonard plenty of time to throw the ball. I think he brings a different element to his game because he can run a little bit. So he was able to kind of keep executing some first downs with his legs. I think he's a little off timing a little bit with some of his wide receivers. That'll come as the season progresses, but my hopes are high for Notre Dame. I think that this is a good first game of the season, playing a tough environment, and to win, I wouldn't say convincingly, but they were up the whole game. They pretty much controlled that whole game, and their defense is elite again. So they're fast. They fly to the ball. They got some big sticks. So really excited. This Notre Dame fan over here.
I said that I thought over the last 40 years, Notre Dame football is the most overrated brand of football in the country. I think maybe Texas A&M is. I remember them in 1998. One of my favorite college players of all time was Michael Bishop, who was quarterback at K-State, and A&M, K-State was playing for a bid in the BCS title game, and A&M beat them in overtime. And it's one of the reasons I love college football. That atmosphere is fantastic, whether you think A&M is cultish or not. But to have almost 107,000 people in that stadium, and for that game to be prime time, it was fantastic. But I just think Mike Elko was mad again. That was his quarterback. He was at Duke. They caught him on the sideline saying, "Run the expletive ball." I thought that was hilarious. He was really pretty pissed off, and that wasn't a good debut for him. Moving to the Mountain West, though, a lot of great performances. Ashton Genty, running back for Boise State, and he's a Heisman Trophy candidate, really helped his case there. 20 carries, 267 yards, 6 touchdowns in what was a track meet against Georgia Southern. They beat them 56-45. They did blow, I think, a 28-9 lead in the second quarter. Back and forth game. It was entertaining. Maddox Madsen, who beat out USC transfer and 5-star recruit Malachi Nelson, who I always call Malachi Flynn, who was actually a basketball player from San Diego State. He beat him out. Maddox had a pretty good game. But Genty, man, and Eric, you were the one texting us during that, because ESPN had trouble with their app and the game wasn't showing. But I'll start with you. It was a pretty phenomenal performance by Ashton Genty.
Dude, it was like a video game out there, just the way he was moving. Obviously, his offensive line created some big holes for him to run through, but for his ability to break tackles, for him to be able to hit that second gear like he does, that's in my mind, my opinion, that's an NFL first rounder for sure. So, yeah, really impressed with him. I'm just glad the Lobos don't have to play them this year because who knows, man, what that'll look like. But really impressive. Heisman candidate for sure. Like he definitely solidified himself in that conversation.
Well, we also saw another Heisman performance for Arizona on Saturday. Rick, I wanted your thoughts on that. You played offensive line. I always think of Kevin Gonzalez. I don't know why he's the first one that pops in my mind, but what did you think of that Genty's performance?
Yeah, I think Eric hit all the points on it there. Obviously, huge holes to run through. But you know what I'm thinking about all the Boise State fans that are so upset or not upset over the quarterback decision. I think it shows it really doesn't matter who the hell the quarterback is. I could be playing quarterback. I mean, Maddox even threw a pick in the red zone, and they still won this by double digits. You know, I think where they got to look is on their defense. Giving up that many points to Georgia Southern is a little head scratching to me. But looking forward, we obviously know where the ball is going for Boise until he can be stopped. And 6 touchdowns. I don't remember the last time I saw that in a college game, man.
One thing worth noting,
numbers. EA College Football 25 numbers.
Yeah, no, one thing worth noting before we move on from Boise was, I don't know if anyone caught the Arkansas game. Taylon Green, the quarterback that transferred from Boise State, got the start there, and he looked really impressive too. So I know that Boise kind of went all in with Madsen this year, and then they obviously got that transfer from USC. But I'm not sure what that full story or what the whole picture looked like there. Why Taylon Green they were running like a 2 quarterback system last year when Taylon Green was definitely the better athlete. I just don't know if he was not understanding the offense or didn't kind of pick up some of the offensive cues as quickly as Madsen was, but he looked really good in his Arkansas debut. I don't know if you guys caught that game, but I thought I would mention that because, I mean, a combination between him and Genty would be, I mean, a really tough tandem to stop.
They played Thursday night, and they played I don't know who they. It was bad. The SEC, obviously, they played Arkansas Pine Bluff, and they had to shorten the quarters in the second half to 10 minutes. So if you bet Arkansas minus 50.5 or whatever, FanDuel or DraftKings didn't honor that, which was kind of funny. But yeah, they blew out Arkansas Pine. I've never heard of a game happen, a shortening of a game like that happening. That was insane to me. Moving on around the Mountain West, Rick, this was pretty good. UNLV threw a pass that bounced, and it was considered a fumble. So Matthew Saluka, the starting quarterback who transferred from Holy Cross, is now Saluka Doncic. Thank you, unnecessary roughness from Barstool, is for real. Then UNLV retweeted that. They looked really good, but in Houston, and Eddie Nunez's new school where he is the athletic, I can't talk tonight, where he is the athletic director of, facing another Mountain West school that 2 years ago beat them pretty badly. Threw for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he ran for 59 as UNLV beat Houston on 27-7 Saturday night in the season opener for both UNLV and Houston. That was Willie Fritz's first game at Houston as the Cougars head coach. He came from Tulane. Of course, he was a part of that Tulane team that beat USC 2 years ago in the Cotton Bowl. He's a fantastic head coach. There's going to be some growing pains there. Saluka was 6 of 13 passing through 2 touchdown passes to Jacob DeJesus, who is a preseason Mountain West All-Conference kick returner and punt returner. He complements Ricky White III, 13 and 24 yards. So they had a 14-0 lead at the half. UNLV was +3. I was all about that. Ricky White III, who Ed and I spoke to, you can find that interview on our YouTube channel at the Pit Press NM. Again, it was an All-American last year for UNLV at wide receiver. He only had 2 receptions for 11 yards. But a guy that who I've got a man crush on and that Ed and I met in Vegas, was Jackson Woodard, who was preseason Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Had 11 tackles, 7 solo, and 3 sacks. So, Ed, I'm going to finally go to you. We met that guy, 6'3", 225. He was a pleasure to talk to. He transferred from Arkansas. He's from Arkansas. I asked him if he got tired of hearing Pig Suey. But your thoughts when you see those numbers, because we had just spoken to him.
Also, all academic on the all academic team. And
that's right.
When you sat down and we talked with him, fills out every bit of 6'3", 230, 235. And, just a really, him and Ricky White were just really as gracious and polite as could be. I remember, asking Ricky White, are you working on your craft? Yes, I'm, been working all season, all off season. And I can bet he's pretty upset with only two receptions for 11 yards. But Jackson Woodard is just one of those football players. He looks the part. You look at his stats on Saturday. 11 tackles, 7 solo, and then 3 sacks. He's a football player, man. And I really enjoyed. We got to talk to a number of players, but he might have been one of my favorites for sure. The guy and the other guy from Boise State that was from Egypt. Those are probably my 2 favorite players that we interviewed. Because Jackson Woodard, that guy's a pro, man. He's going with the pros for sure. Got the size, the strength, the speed, explosive, the whole thing. So not surprised to see him have those kind of statistics in the opening game.
Jalen Catalone, who finished with 2 interceptions in the game, had a 36-yard pick 6 in the third quarter. This is UNLV's first win over a Big 12 team since beating Iowa State 34-31 in overtime. Wyoming got shellacked 43-7 by Arizona State. They were 6.5-point underdogs. Colorado State did not show up against Texas. San Jose State beat Sacramento State on Thursday night. And then this game was horrendous. I had to turn it off. Craig Bowl must be insanely mad. Trying to think who else. I want to put a rundown for the Mountain West Conference. San Diego State won, and then we'll get to the UNM game in a while. But Rick or Eric, do you have any other takeaways from what we were talking about there in regards to UNLV or Boise State or any of the Mountain West Conference teams?
Yeah, just real quickly. I know Rick probably had a thought after that, but just what I was reading on Twitter. I mean, from just the responses from the fan bases, everyone in Wyoming was real negative towards what they saw on the field. The same could be said about Colorado State, because I think Colorado State had a lot of high hopes. They had some guys returning. They were featured all over SportsCenter and ESPN with the 2 players that were offered $600,000 of NIL money to transfer, and they end up sticking around. So I think the expectation was much higher than what we saw on Saturday. But conversely, with what we were reading and kind of following on the UNM Twitter thread was night and day. I think more people were way more positive with what they saw on the field against Arizona with UNM and how electric Devin Dampier looked. Man, that guy is, I think, only scratching the surface. We'll get into it a little bit more, but I think just the differences in the fan bases and what their reactions were to seeing their team for the first time on week 1 was definitely more on the negative side compared to what UNM fans were kind of raving about after watching that game. So, Rick?
And UNLV fans are ready to crown themselves. And I think Sluka is definitely going to have to pass the ball more than 13 times when you have the type of weapons like he has. And I'm sure that those games will come. They're kind of easing this new quarterback into the system. But some simulations I saw today of the college football playoff actually included a UNLV over a Boise. So I hope UNLV stays hot, and I hope the fans stay angry at their teams out there, because it's a good read in the late hours.
They were chanting at Sun Devil Stadium, the Wyoming fans, to fire the new head coach. I thought that was fantastic. All right, moving on, and we'll touch on UNM. I wanted to finish here, and everybody saw the performance. There we go. All right. Let's see if I can pronounce his name right, because he deserves the much respect. Tetaroa McMillan. 10 catches for 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. McMillan averaged 30.4 yards on 10 catches and broke the Arizona single game record of 283 yards receiving set by Jeremy McDaniel in 1996, almost 20 years. He had he had scores of 69, which is what I had queued up for. 17, 78, and 40. Noah Fafita threw for 422 yards on 31 attempts. He connected on 19 of those. He threw all 4 of his touchdown passes to McMillan. He was not only Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week, he was AP National Player of the Week. He looked every bit. Jacob compared him to Mike Evans. He looked every bit like Mike Evans or Larry Fitzgerald. I will get everybody's thoughts on that here in a second. I want to go to Jacob's Neff's picks for his Neff's number series. He was 2-1 on Saturday. He had Georgia minus 12.5. He had the under in Notre Dame and Texas A&M. West Virginia let everybody down. So again, 2-1 on Saturday on week 1. He's 4-2 on the year overall. And now we will get to the UNM and Arizona game. I'm going to go to this play very, very quickly, and I have to queue it up on Twitter. I'm sorry, I could not find it anywhere, and of course, it's playing on me. But the Michael Jordan-esque pass that I was incredibly impressed with this. Here it is.
Damn, rolling. Using your legs. Oh, look at the fake and the score.
Probably one of the best plays in the history of UNM football. Was phenomenal. Really, really impressed by him. I was kind of speechless. I'll give my thoughts on this game first, because it's very weird. And then again, we'll have Ben Wysong on at 9 to break everything down. Former UNM Lobo back and linebacker. I thought, never mind. I was reading the comments. I know there was a lot of positivity on Saturday night because the offense looked good. And I'm not here to belittle college kids, even though some of them will probably be making more money than I do in a day job. Everybody was really, really positive, and there should be on the offensive side of the ball. But the defense has given up over 1,100 yards in 2 games and 96 total points. Once again, in 2 games. For the college football fan, if you don't know who Tetaroa McMillan is, now you do. And I feel really bad for some of the UNM players because that kid was probably not on the Heisman watch and now is with those kind of numbers. I was impressed with the first half. I was impressed that they went back and forth with Arizona. I always say it on here. Mike Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and it seemed like U of A got punched in the mouth. I overheard somebody make a comment that there were 2 special team mishaps for Arizona, and the special teams head coach, or excuse me, the special teams coach for U of A, of course, is former UNM head coach Danny Gonzalez. But I have to give credit where credit is due, and it's Devin Dampier, 24 for 42, 260 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of them really wasn't his fault, and he ran the ball 15 times for 130 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. And then the Michael Jordan fake was fantastic. Luke Wysong, one of the big positives I can take away, he's probably playing himself into being a draft pick. 8 receptions for 129 yards and a touchdown. He had that key 30-some yard reception in between the 2 guys, the 2 Arizona defenders, and the kid's name is escaping me. That the cornerback who he kind of lit up and kind of got ejected, which was fantastic. And we'll ask Ben about that. He's a first-round pick. I thought Luke looked fantastic. Christian Ellis did have an interception. He picked off Noah Fafita in the second quarter. But it was a very entertaining game. and it was a little weird. Again, the halftime adjustments, we heard Bronco talk about it, and they might be a little banged up, so it's a good thing they have a bye week. Ed, I'm going to start with you, and I wanted your thoughts on Devin Dampier and Luke Wysong.
Devin Dampier had the best game of a Lobo quarterback, they said, since Sherian Rogers in 2019, as far as the legs and the passing. When he made that fake, man, my granddaughter spent the night here, so I really couldn't yell, but I really came out of my chair on that fake of the option touchdown. He played very well. The first interception, we were texting back and forth. He's trying to make a play, but you can't throw the ball down the field like that off your back leg. You just can't. Now he's going to get better with that. But overall, and you mentioned Luke Wysong. Remember, last week against Montana State, he had dropped a pass. He came out and played his behind off. He really did. A couple of times he was double covered and snatched the ball, went up and got it. Played big, over 100 yards receiving. And so a big target when Devin Dampier needed someone to throw the ball to. So I thought from that point of view, the play calling was good. I thought they put Devin Dampier in position to succeed with his leg and his arm. I don't know who isn't excited about seeing that. Now, you mentioned the defense, and the defense has a lot of work to do. And we asked Coach Mendenhall yesterday about the bye week. And I think they're a little bit more banged up than he's willing to say. He didn't want to say yesterday. Somebody asked him specifically who's hurt, and he said he didn't want to talk about it now. So we'll have to wait and see when that injury report comes out. It was a ball game. It went back and forth, and then Arizona, that 51-yard run, kind of put it away. And, look, you mentioned, Ryan, that, McMillan, the Neff broke it down on Saturday. He catches out of the slot. He catches crossing patterns. He catches fades. He put him in the slot. Now, Noah Pola-Gates did a decent job for a while. I thought he covered him as best as he could. And a lot of people were saying, why didn't you double cover him? Why didn't you do this or that? Coach Mendenhall said they tried everything. He said that yesterday, and that they couldn't stop him. That's obvious. Fafita is a great quarterback. That's probably one of the best passing teams they'll face all season long. And I thought, again, they've got work to do. Then they've got Auburn. And then, that's a tough game to go play. The schedule does them no favors at all. But I think there's a lot of reason for optimism. I really do. I've seen a lot of improvement. They asked Coach Mendenhall about the offensive line yesterday, and he said that he thought they performed not as good as maybe they were missing the center. They had to slide some guys over, and he wasn't as optimistic or excited about that unit as maybe I thought he would be. But after the first two games, they're 0-2. Montana State was a winnable game. They didn't win it. They improved offensively. They need a lot of work on defense. But I'm excited about Devin Dampier. I don't know. We've talked about that. We've been looking for a Lobo quarterback, at that position to solidify, to be solid, and maybe play a couple of years and not go through transfers. And we're hoping that Devin Dampier is that guy, and he sure looked like it on Saturday.
I just want to say one thing, and then I'll get Eric and Rick's thoughts. Was McMillan, despite all of the great plays he had, I thought he made one catch that was like only 5 or 6 yards, and he extended to make the catch, so he was down by the ground, in college. And the way he caught the pass, I think it was in the second or third quarter, and I was like, that trumped everything, no pun intended, trumped everything that he had done, scoring and everything. Now, and then he clocked in at 22 miles an hour on the 78-yard or the 40-yard touchdown run, I think, which is only a mile per hour behind Tyreek Hill at 23. He's 6'6", 215. But that one catch he made, and I know it's not going to be looked at with everything that he did, but the way he extended his arms and made the play, I'm acting like NFL combine or scout guy. I thought that was the most impressive play. Rick, I'll go to you. Your thoughts on the game and what you liked and what you didn't like.
Yeah, I'll start with the Irish Hawaiian T-Mac here. Definitely someone we'll be seeing play on Sundays. Most impressive to me is he's moving at a full speed at 6'4". He's able to drop his hips, make a cut and keep that speed and come up out of it. And you don't see a lot of guys at that size being able to maintain their speed in and out of cuts like that. Definitely fun to watch. Not if you're a Lobo fan. Too bad, from the very opening play, our cornerback fell down and never had a chance. And that was kind of a sign of, what the future held in that game. The defense has obviously some glaring problems. They're not able to bring pressure, with just a 4-man front, or even in that game, to my memory here, they didn't have a sack even when they brought the blitz. And you guys could correct me if I'm wrong. And that just puts so much pressure on the secondary. And what Coach Mendenhall was saying, as Ed was in attendance there yesterday asking great questions himself, was, no matter what New Mexico did, the coverage didn't align with the pressure that was coming, and it never really mixed together. And I don't think it really would have mattered how they covered T-Mac. Everyone's saying, what can you do? What can you do? Well, sometimes there isn't anything you can do. It was no disrespect to the Lobos, but it was like a grown man playing with children at times out there. And that guy could already be playing in the men's league if he wanted to. So I don't know what they can do on the defense. They obviously are giving full effort with Pola Gates, the transfers from Nebraska, having multiple pass deflections and tackles. So his, development, we're seeing that come up. And the secondary has the players with Christian Ellis again, getting a turnover. So there is bright spots, but there's not a consistent pass rush at all. And I thought they were going to be more of a running team. The offensive line did not really open anything up for the running backs. I think Eli Sanders and Rogers both averaged under 3 yards a carry, and that's not going to get it done because you can't expect Dampier to go over 100 every game. It's just not sustainable. So definitely some bright spots. They hung in there, but that interception off the chest of Sean Miller for me really just kind of took away momentum and did him in. And I'm not blaming it solely on that play. There was a lot of game to go, but when you only make Arizona punt one time, it was a really tough task.
Eric, I'll get your thoughts. By the way, there were no sacks by either team in that game. Eric, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Rick hit a lot of good points. Obviously, the drops were big, some of the miscues. But listening to Bronco Mendenhall's press conference yesterday was that they felt like they had the best that they could have out there as far as personnel goes on the defensive side. Pola Gates wasn't even a starter, but he probably wouldn't have played unless there was an injury. I'm not sure, Ed, if you caught that during the presser yesterday. But Pola Gates stepped in, got an opportunity, and made the best of his opportunity. And that's I'm just paraphrasing what Bronco said. But the defense, it's tough, man, when you're playing a player like McMillan who's really smart. And just listening to some of the podcasts and some of the radio, national radio on this game, he's just a smart wide receiver. And he's played with this quarterback for multiple years, dates back to high school days and even youth football. So they were just kind of walking through some replays of some on plays that he was making some big gains. The Lobos were shutting down some of those first option passes, and McMillan was just finding second options in the zone, soft spots, getting by defensive backs and kind of sitting in a soft spot between two different defenders. And once he has the ball, he's really hard to stop because he's so long and lanky and gets to that second gear really quick. So it's just tough when you're not at full strength on defense. Obviously, the Lobos are a little outnumbered as far as athletes go in the secondary and whatnot. They're still dealing with some injuries, but when you're playing a future first-round NFL draft pick like that, who's got a really high motor, he's fast, he's got some really good hands, like Ryan just said, and who's got a really strong IQ, knows how to play the game well, find the open spots in the field. That's why these NFL scouts are kind of drooling all over themselves. But some of the positives, I think, obviously, Dampier and Wysong, like you guys talked about at the beginning, that defensive back that Ben was mentioning, or he kind of put out on Twitter, that
Tacario Davis. I couldn't think of his name.
Oh, is that who it was? I thought it was Stukes. Stukes, did I have that right? Traden Stukes, number 2.
No, Tacario Davis is the guy, the kid,
okay.
the draft prospect. Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, that Traden Stukes was also a draft prospect, and he was lined up against Wysong for most of the game, and Wysong had just as good of a game as Dampier did. I think he was just overshadowed because Dampier had the ball in his hand for most of the game, but definitely a career game for him. And man, I still can't believe that what we saw out of Dampier. I think the biggest difference from week 1 or week 0 to week 1 with Dampier was he rushed the ball 3 times against Montana State. In this game, he rushed 15. So he's definitely looking for that more in his offense. When the first or second option isn't there in the passing game, he looks to escape the pocket, and that's where he takes advantage of what the defense is willing to give him. And man, it's exciting. I very encouraging from what I saw. Obviously, the defense has a lot to work on, some in-game adjustments, stuff like that. But I'm excited. I'm encouraged about where this program's headed.
Just one more thing I wanted to hit on, and one thing the Lobos can't afford, if this is going to be their identity, where they're going to have to score 30 or 40 points to hang around in a game, they can't have 8 penalties. You know, they had 8 penalties for 65 yards. Jaden Wilson got ejected within the first 5 minutes of the game, and they were down a starter on defense, which obviously hurts. And then the most head scratching ones to me is they had 2 either delay of games or false starts on punts. Now, you as a lineman, as any player on the field, you don't move until the ball is snapped. So I don't understand how you get a false start or a delay of game on a punt. But those are just head scratching to me. And, those could have, probably changed the field position a little bit at those times. So if their identity is going to be an up and down game, they got to have more discipline in my eyes.
I forgot about the 2 penalties on the punts. That was pretty bad. Before we go to break, we're going to be joined by Ben Wysong, who I told in between 8:45 and 9 o'clock, so I feel much better about that. What I forgot to mention, and I know I'm switching gears here because I'm going to ask Ben about it, and I'm going to give my thoughts. New Mexico State barely beat Southeast Missouri State. You can say what you want. Their quarterbacks were a combined 7 of 23 for 60 yards, and they averaged 2.6 yards a pass against whatever SEMO's made the NCAA tournament in basketball. And they needed a late drive to do it. Again, I've acknowledged how much I loved New Mexico State last year because they were a covering machine for me. But that's pretty bad. I watched some of that game during the during the Lobo game, and it was pretty painful. So I do think that they miss Diego Pavia, and I think that they miss Jerry Kill. Obviously, Tony Sanchez has been under that staff, but I don't know, man. Those are bad numbers against an FBS team. There you go. Passing yards -5. I didn't see that stat. Anyway, we'll take a quick commercial break. I think Rick's got to jump off, but we're going to be joined by Ben Wysong. We'll be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name is Ryan Tamori. Eric Moulton and Rick Thompson had to jump off. Lost my train of thought. Sorry. Still joined by Ed Nunez, the voice of the Western Mexico Mustangs. We're breaking down the U of A 61-39 win over UNM, and I'm happy to be joined, who will be joining us weekly, except when he goes to what I'm very jealous of, Ohio State at Oregon. His name is Mr. Ben Wysong. He played for UNM and was a Lobo back, played the Lobo position and linebacker. Ben, how you doing this week?
Doing good. Yeah, thank you guys for having me on. Yeah, I always look forward to Tuesday nights joining you guys, so I'm excited to talk some football with you guys. And
Awesome.
yeah, you got a minute, dude. I should have taken the under tonight.
Oh yeah. Hey, I did it on the under. Yeah, you were right. I was like, wait a second. What am I missing? 8:59. Hey, pretty good there. And that was with commercials. Maybe you could leave that out.
Yeah.
I am not going to start for did I say Ed and Ryan were jumping off? I meant Rick and Eric were jumping off. Man, I'm hungry. And it's been a long day. I'm not going to start with Teteroa McMillan. I will start with your nephew. 8 receptions, 129 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 fantastic catch in between traffic. That was a 30-yarder. And I'll get your thoughts, obviously. Again, I know it's family, but he's been injured and he's coming back. To see him do that on a Big 12 field against that opponent, and what was a pretty good defense last year. They were missing a lot of guys. I just wanted your thoughts, because there was a moment there where he was going blow for blow with McMillan, and it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even, express how proud I am of him. And, it was awesome to see, and I'll quote Mendenhall on this, that, what he's capable of doing. I mean, we got a glimpse of what Luke can do, and, how he can rise to the challenge, against a Big 12 team. And especially that team in particular, I would not be surprised if those guys contend for a Big 12 championship this year, in the inaugural year. But it was awesome seeing Luke just, perform, especially, with everything that happened last week with Montana State. So it was cool. And it was funny because I was joking with my wife, because I think UNM had posted the day before when they were doing their walkthrough in the field. And there was that picture of Luke sitting on the bench, and he just kind of had that look on his face. Like, I think he was looking at the scoreboard or something. I'm like, man, I was like, that look, I know that look, and they're in trouble. So it was good to see him perform the way he did.
No, that's incredibly awesome. I've made this comment to you, and it was after week 0 about possibility of, and he's a redshirt junior, but the possibility of being drafted. And I'm trying to be objective and, I guess, real. I think he has played his way into scouts taking him seriously. I wanted your thoughts about that. Yeah,
I mean, that's exciting. I mean, with the way that he's performed, I mean, it's, it'd be hard not to at least take a glance at him and, see what he's capable of. And, especially looking at the next level. I'm sure Luke would tell you right now, though, that's the last thing he's probably thinking about. I think Luke's, I think his mindset right now is, getting wins for this team, doing his part to, see these guys succeed, and just take it a step at a time and try to get, to a bowl game. And, hopefully by the time he graduates, get to a Mountain West championship. So, but the fact that we're having the conversation, though, is pretty exciting in itself. And it's cool to see Luke, just make the most of his opportunities and be able to basically kind of pick up where he left off the year before last. And I'm excited. I mean, I know we got the bye week coming up, but I'm already looking for Auburn. I think that's going to be a fun trip. It's a great opportunity for them. And so, the bigger games like that, like you said, speaking of NFL, you're going to get more exposure that way too. So it's not just for Luke, but for all those guys.
Ben, I want to ask you this.
That's very true.
Yeah, and going back to the Montana State game, Luke dropped a pass, and what, things happen, but it's the way you respond as a player. Now, I played athletics, man, and I know when I had a bad performance, even when I coached or even when I officiated high school basketball, if I made a bad call, that would stick with me. It really would. Now, Luke's a champ. We knew he was going to respond the way he did. Talk a little bit about when you talked to him. I can only imagine, I'm sure He's working with the jugs machine, working with the quarterbacks because he had a great game. He responded. But talk to him about how he felt after that Montana State game and his approach when you talked to him to this week's game against Arizona, because he came out and played big, man. He did.
Yeah.
He showed it. And everyone that drops passes, it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
It happens. But talk a little bit about his approach this week, because he came out and showed out, man. He did.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, Ed. And, when we talked to him after that game on Montana State, I mean, it was pretty brief because, he was pretty down. I mean, it was, emotion still set in, it was fresh. And, Luke, we're something with us. It's always been, hey, you got 24 hours, you got 24 hours after the game, and then we're moving on to the next phase. And the cool thing, especially, hearing like the days after, from Luke about practice and, everyone was upbeat at practice. Like, you would have never known that these guys lost the game. And so by hearing that, these guys have a great support system with this coaching staff where, they get these guys focused and rise to the challenge, the next opportunity that you get. Everything is all about opportunities with these guys. And I think this coaching staff really preaches and pretty much drives it into these guys that, hey, make the most of it. And we just saw firsthand with the Arizona game with Luke. I mean, he was focused, he was dialed in, ready to go. And not only just for Luke, but I think the whole team in general. I think once that they start getting more game time with each other and start getting into these tougher game environments, I think it's just going to help these guys in the long run, especially when it comes into conference play where, you're not going against an Arizona every week. I mean, no disrespect to the other Mountain West teams, but I mean, that was a pretty solid team that they just went up against and they went toe-to-toe with for the first half of the game.
I think you're right about Luke not wanting to talk about being drafted or anything like that. You put together one good performance, you got to string together 4, 5, 6 more, right? And nothing wrong with his name being mentioned out there. He had a heck of a that catch between a double team. He went and got it, man. He went and got it, and I was impressed. I was really impressed with the way he played. That's hard. That's champion, man. That's guts, right? He's gonna come back and continue to play like that. But I wanted to ask you this. Now, Devin Dampier had the best game of a New Mexico quarterback, and that's excitement seeing that. We've been waiting for that for a while. We really have. We want a guy that can be behind center and look to make plays. He made them with his legs and his arm. Now, going forward, though, Coach Mendenhall kind of mentioned that the more he runs, there's the risk, right? There's the risk for any quarterback. Cole Gauchi, when he ran that triple option here, how many concussions did he get? Tall quarterback. He got about 5 or 6 of them. The last one, I remember when I saw the last one, I'm like, hey, man, if I'm his dad, that's it. That's it, man. So you're kind of risking that. But again, that's part of what they're going to need him to do. Do you see Coach Mendenhall, maybe playing it close to the vest and not running him as much? I mean, that's part of their game plan. Because they're worried about him getting hurt. I mean, it's a game. You have to do what you do. But I got to say this: I don't know how much confidence they have in the second string quarterback. Nothing against Isaiah Chavez. I think he's a fine player. But the Lobos are going to go as Devin Dampier does.
Right, I agree with you with that. I mean, and it's a long season. I mean, we're only on technically week 1 now. 2 games into this, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's one of those where I don't know if it could be just because they're trying to, not necessarily limit Devin, but, basically eliminate his risk of injury. But at the same time, too, you also look, with these first 2 games, it's, how much are these guys looking to open up the playbook as they go through the season, I think is another factor that you got to consider, too. Another thing, too, and you guys brought it up earlier, is, the whole injury factor. I think, especially offensively, I think once Caleb gets back to being 100%, I think that offense is going to be pretty special, even more so what we just saw. And I think in that case, that's just going to give Devin another option as far as from a receiving standpoint compared to, hey, we might just have like Luke and RD, Ryan Davis. He's another, he's actually been playing pretty well himself too. So that gives him another option to think about instead of like, hey, you know what? I only got maybe 1 or 2 receivers, so we're going to run it. So, and it's funny you brought that up too. I'm a little surprised that we haven't seen Andrew Henry yet, with his, production, that if it's only been Eli and Jacobs. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes, as the weeks go through, and, maybe after this bye week, we'll see Andrew, make an appearance to give them another option. But yeah, I mean, you nailed it perfectly. I think this offense definitely goes as Devin goes.
We asked him about Andrew Henry at the last press conference
Mhm.
before this game, and he said, you might see him in Arizona, but we haven't seen him yet. But we
Right.
don't know what kind of injuries. Now, Ben, you played on the defensive side, and New Mexico is again. This is with McMillan and Fafita. Those guys are that's top of the line stuff, right? We
Right.
didn't even mention Bill. Bill got 105 yards and scored on he's forgotten. Nobody even mentioned him, and
Yeah.
he had a pretty decent game. The one hole he scored on, heck, that was you could have driven a truck through, man. And
Yeah.
give him credit. He's a heck of a running back. I wish he would have stayed here. Now, defensively, they've got some work to do. Now, we don't know what the injuries they have, but during this bye week, Coach Mendenhall mentioned they're going to be resting, running, preparing. They got to get ready for Auburn. What do you see them doing as far as making the improvements they need? And again, Auburn's a SEC opponent that's going to be very tough for New Mexico. But in this 2-week period, what do you think they need to work on as far as, Coach Mendenhall mentioned playing their gaps,
Yep.
playing fundamental. I mean, the guy's a genius. In fact, when I talked to Ryan about it, you almost have to stretch to hear him talk, man, when you're there. He speaks. He really does, right?
He really does. Yes.
Calculated, precise, not emotional. I've been around a lot of coaches, man, in a lot of sports, and a lot of them wear their emotions on their sleeve. He doesn't. Not in front of the press.
Right.
Very quiet. We need to execute. We're trying. We're getting better. Right. Boom. And I was telling Ryan, I'm like, man, I don't think I've ever heard anybody like Coach Mendenhall. All due respect, the guy's a genius.
Yeah.
He knows what he's talking about. So what do you think New Mexico needs to work on these next couple of weeks as far as their defensive assignments, things like that, things you know about?
Yeah, sure. Another great question. I think it's just a great opportunity for these guys to get back to the basics in a sense, in terms of, going over their coverage schemes, depending on the personnel that, they're, going to be going up against, whether it's a 3x1 or a 2x2 set. And then also too, I mean, especially looking back at this last game with Arizona, and I think it was Eric that brought up the point where, when you got a quarterback and, receiver, Fafita and T-Mac that have been playing together since they were fifth grade or something like that. That's hard to go up against where, now that we have this bye week coming up, it's a fresh start. Personally, I think it could have come at a better time to help these guys maybe just kind of slow down and just take a breath a little bit, especially on the defensive side of the ball to where, hey, you know what, let's get in the film room. Let's look over what went right, what went wrong. I think it was that first drive where, speaking of injuries, I think it was Cam Watts was the one that got hurt that Noah had to fill in for. I mean, that's a big loss right there. I mean, Cam, he's a transfer from Texas Tech who has some pretty good playing time back there. So, for Noah to be able to fill in the way that he did, yeah, I mean, I thought he did great, for the just basically, hey, you're up next, it's that up next mentality. But as far as this bye week goes, yeah, I don't think it could have come at a better time for these guys from an injury standpoint to rest these guys up, just, take everything in the training room. And then also, too, get in that fill room or even on the field and just do some walkthrough stuff once, maybe after their conditioning or however they got it structured. But it's a good opportunity for these guys to slow it down and just take a breath, I think.
I think I may have gotten my defensive backs mixed up, but Takar, I'm going to ask you this because you were texting me about it today. I think it was Dacario Davis that
it was
Luke.
Yeah, number one.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Okay, perfect. I'm not insane. Luke was jawing with him, and he's kind of. I love a good trash talker, and I guess Luke is calm enough to not get himself in trouble, but he got him ejected. And you said that you had a conversation with him, and I asked you, can you talk about this on the show?
Yeah. Yeah, because I told Luke about it too.
Which hopefully will be radio internet gold right now. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll keep it PC for now. I don't want to dime out Luke too much on this, but
I'm sorry.
Let's just say he wasn't impressed.
Perfect.
Yeah, he was not impressed. Let's just say that.
The G version. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it sounded like that he was jawing, that Davis was jawing at him that for most of the game. So, and I didn't remember the first penalty that he had got, but to me, my favorite part of that whole situation is that, you can see in the video where Luke's just got a smile on his face the entire time, even after he, got, smacked in the face by him. And it's like, yep, that's Luke. So I still don't know what he even said to him to make him punch him, but I'm sure it had to have been something pretty good.
No, it's fantastic. And you and I were also talking about before we, trying to get ready for this show. I was not impressed with New Mexico State. I think you look at this schedule for UNM and it's Auburn. You never know. Then they get Fresno State at home.
Yeah.
Then they go to New Mexico State, and I know I'm ripping it off, but then you get the back end of the Mountain West Conference, and I wasn't really impressed with any of these teams. I'm looking at this Mountain West schedule. I'm going to ask two things, and I'll start here. I feel like Montana State might come back and bite them in the butt if they've got 4 or 5 wins, and I wanted your thoughts on that. And if they don't, I'm thinking about the kid and Where the Millers, no regrets, but no regrets. I don't like. I feel like they might, if we're here in early November and they're sitting at 4 wins, 5 wins, and making some noise in the Mountain West Conference.
Mm-hmm.
How bad is Montana State going to look?
I think it just kind of depends on how well Montana State does for one. I mean, I can see those guys, possibly doing on a 10-2, 11-1, depending on how they do in the conference, but. You're right. Once you sent me that text earlier, it got me thinking like, man, I was like, that's going to really sting, because especially like when you had the situation like last year where you had some of these, 5 and 7 teams that were, in a sense, bowl eligible, that were able to go. So it's like, does UNM kind of cancel themselves out with that because they, lost to an FCS team? Does that even count? So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out if we do get into that situation. And it was an opportunity lost, in a sense. I don't want to, be, I'm not going to beat around the bush around it. It's going to be tough. So I don't want to think about it. I'm hoping that we can do really well in the Mountain West and just not have to worry about that situation. But, we got to, Coach Mendenhall said it, the other day too. There's a lot of things we got to clean up, especially on that defensive side of the ball. So before we can even think about a bowl game.
You know what though, Ben? I think you've been around the game, man. You played, you've been around it. All we can do is control what we can control.
Exactly.
That's it. I've always said that. I can't control what anybody else does. We're already in a hole. We know that. We can't go back. They may look back with regret on that. But I think the other thing is this though. If they're improving, and again, that we mentioned the defense has to improve. They were toe-to-toe with Arizona for a while, man, with number 21 Arizona. Now Arizona has more athletes and better players right now. But I think with Coach Mendenhall, they have improved. There's no question about it. They're going to get better.
Yep.
Now, Ben, you might mention this too. 60 new players, a new coach, new systems. How long does that take? They're still in its infancy, man. They played 2 games. Coach Mendenhall mentioned the pressure didn't match the coverages, things like that. They can work on those for the next 2 weeks. But the more reps you get, the better you get. Now, I was hoping they could use this next 2 weeks to get better, to practice with them. The injuries may change that a little bit, but it's going to take some time. And again, you can't worry about, all you could do is take care of what's in front of you. That's it. And I think if the way they're improving, I expect them to get maybe a win where we may not have expected one. Maybe they surprise somebody where New Mexico was thought, to maybe be a big underdog. And they pop somebody in the face.
Yeah,
I think this game here kind of woke a few people up. Again, they've got holes. It's not a done product by any means, but it's exciting to see, I think. So we'll see what happens down. It's still a lot of football left to be played. There really is.
Exactly. Yeah, I am 100% agreeing with you. And it's funny, like when you said the whole 60 new players, I'm looking back, during my time at UNM, like we didn't have that problem. I mean, everyone was. You knew who you're getting back and you knew who was leaving, so, this is a totally different world. And you're absolutely right. I mean, because even some of these guys that are on the roster, some of these guys didn't even show up until the summer. They didn't even have the spring to go through with these guys to really, build, set the foundation and, get the playbook going. So you're absolutely right. It's going to be tough. And, I know you guys have mentioned New Mexico State. That might be something that they're maybe going through as well, too, with that performance they had against, Southeast Missouri. Is it Southeast Missouri? Yeah. So, it could be the same thing for them too. But you're right. You know, I think once these guys start playing together, especially when it comes to game time, you know, as we all know, you know, sometimes practice, yes, you know, you're working on your plays and things like that. But once you step on that field on Saturdays, it is a different environment. You know, everything changes. So, you know, you've got the added pressure, you know, you're in front of the fans. So I think once these guys kind of settle in and get comfortable with that with each other, and you know start gelling together and understanding even the little things, like if I look over and I see, I don't know, Quincy Black, for example, like if I looked at him and saw, okay, he's pressing up, like I know what he's doing, like I can tell just by his look and demeanor, and I don't know if these guys are quite there yet, as far as the little things. So but the big thing I took away from this Arizona game is that there's so much potential for this team, though. I mean, yes, people are going to rip on the defense, but I mean, once these guys get some more practice and game time together, I think they could make some noise, especially by the time that conference comes around. Personally, I think this Auburn game coming up is going to be a great thing for these guys. I'd rather see these guys battle tested now, against these teams compared to then going into the Mountain West. The only thing I'm worried about, and we've touched on, is just the injury aspect. Hopefully that we can get these guys and keep them healthy by the time that the conference games come around.
I know that I think Arizona State was a surprise. Wyoming didn't look like they knew their ass from their elbow, and I expected that defensive line is really good. Colorado State, I think they've got playmakers. I know they were at Texas. I think Texas next to Georgia might be pound for pound. Well, after what I saw week one, I know I'm Sunday morning quarterbacking for college football, but what I saw was kind of, I wasn't impressed. I've changed my tune, and I know it's after 1 week of football, and I'm being repetitive here. I don't know what Air Force beat Merrimack, who I didn't know had a team.
That one I was surprised about. I think the most out of all of them. That one surprised me because I mean, you think of Air Force and it's these guys are they're dominant no matter who they play in a sense especially with the Russian attack. But yeah, against a team like Merrimack, where I'll be honest, I couldn't even tell you what division they are. I mean, I'm assuming they're 1AA, but I was very surprised with that game, probably more so. I mean, like, you mentioned the Colorado State Texas game. I mean, yeah, 53-0, that's a pretty tough loss. But I mean, you're talking about a team in Texas that these guys got national championship aspirations. I mean, you look at that roster and I mean, these guys are just stacked, and yeah, the Arizona State Wyoming game. If you would have told me that Wyoming was going to only put up 7 points and give up 48 against those guys, I would have said you're an idiot, but it happened, and, but like you said, it's week one, maybe we're having a different conversation in week 5 and week 6 with these guys, but yeah, I mean, it's still surprising.
I want to say that, and hypothetically, and again, Ben, I'm used to being the talking head or glass half empty kind of big, hypothetically, okay, they're 0-3, but you beat Fresno State, you beat New Mexico State, you're heading into Air Force, and you're 1-0 in conference, and you're heading into Air Force, which is here,
right?
And you're 2-3, and I think the dynamic of that season completely changes.
Absolutely, yep.
It just does to me, and I'm gonna throw that New Mexico State game in, and we will treat that game like the Super Bowl, like we did Montana State, the week of what would be the 22nd or 23rd there. But I mentioned this in text, and I don't want you to delve too much into it because you still have Auburn, you still have Fresno State. That game is 3 weeks away.
Right.
But what I saw out of New Mexico State, and I said those stats, and I understand they're probably going through those growing pains. But with right here, right now, I would imagine New Mexico might actually go into that game favored because NMSU gets Liberty this weekend. Caden Salter is a great quarterback. They've got a guy, Conley, I think, is a running back. But I mean, if you had to, with what you've seen from the eye test right now, you think UNM can probably beat the snot out of NMSU. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot there, not the snot there, the spot there, but just your thoughts as we kind of inch towards that game.
Yeah, it's a little tough. I mean, especially more so from the fan aspects. I mean, I know probably the players I know they're focusing on this week and then Auburn next week, but yeah, I mean, it's a rivalry game, and rivalry games can go any way they can go. But I mean, yeah, after watching what NMSU did on Saturday, I mean, it at least gets the wheels turning and makes you wonder, like, hey, UNM has a pretty good chance this year to put a whooping on these guys. And as an alum, all will be right in the world again. But yeah, it does make you wonder though. And yeah, I was surprised too, especially with the quarterback play that you had mentioned earlier. I couldn't believe it. Especially, and it makes you look too, like, how special Diego was for that team last year and just how much that he was an important factor for them. And I mean, hey, look what he did this past Saturday. He just, took it to Virginia Tech in his first game in the SEC, as an SEC player. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's going to be interesting when that week gets here, especially, we'll know by then on that Monday, hey, injury reports, stuff like that. And depending on how that Fresno State game goes too. I mean, that could, kind of dictate, the week going into the NMSU game as far as, hey, if you got a win on your belt, especially a conference win, that definitely will build momentum. So, and I will say, yeah, if New Mexico can pull out a win against Fresno State before New Mexico State, I think New Mexico State might be in some trouble.
Ben, you mentioned Diego Pavia, and he's got those intangibles, right? I mean, again, nothing jumps out about him, his speed or arm, but that heart, man, that kid's a football player. He knows how to make football plays. Yeah. He's tough. He's like Eric Moulton said, he's going to take it upfield, cut it upfield. He's very good on the RPO, very good, not afraid to take a hit. He knows where the sticks are, man. He's going to move the chains. I respect that kid. I didn't like what he did at UNM, but you know what? I honestly wish New Mexico would have taken a look. Honestly, he's a leader, man. Again, you've been around football and athletics. People look at him, they think, hey, I want to follow that guy. That guy's a ball player, man. He makes a difference. So the other thing, the Jerry Kill. Now, one of my friends, Pat Dyer, his son Cam Dyer. Pat's a friend of mine.
Great people.
Son, Yeah, I love Pat. Pat's a good guy. And we had Cam on Road to the Pit, and Cam, I called him the other day. I meant to call Pat, and I called Cam, and Cam answers right away. Mr. Nunez, this is after they beat Pinnacle. He answered right away, and he didn't have to answer my call, but a nice young man. So it's a cultural thing. He said Devin Dyer played in New Mexico State. He transferred to Western, but Devin Dyer played in New Mexico State, his son, and he said that Jerry Kill cussed out everybody, water boy, everybody got and that's his style. I'm not that.
Sure.
Ryan and I saw a game last year. He had a New Mexico State by the jersey, man. And you can't. A lot of coaches can't do that anymore, right? They can't.
The finger.
Yes,
the finger. And they had won the game, and he had his
still
finger right.
Was he giving him the knife hand, like the?
No. It was he was in his and again, I'm sorry for my language. It was he was in his fucking face, and I'm sure he was dropping F-bombs, and I was like, yes, I actually like that a lot. Sorry, Ed, go ahead.
No problem. But he changed the culture, man.
Absolutely.
Look what they did. Again, I'm a Lobo, and I can't stand the Aggies. I never could, ever. Yep. Right now, and all kudos to my friend John Romero, who's one of our main listeners, and he's an Aggie. But man, this goes back when I was a kid. I've been a Lobo fan since '70, Ben. I told you. So I used to listen Lobos and Aggies, and my brother would tell me if the Lobos lost to the Aggies, I would cry when I was young, and I bet I did. Yeah. I couldn't stand them, but you got to give Kill credit. He changed the culture there. That's why I'm looking to see what Coach Mendenhall can do here. He changed the culture at BYU. BYU had some success under Lavelle Edwards. They had, but he changed the culture at Virginia. He's a winner. He knows how to coach football. So I think with New Mexico State, all due respect to Coach Sanchez out there. Is it Coach Sanchez out there?
Sanchez,
hey, all respect to Tony Sanchez. I hope he has some success there. He's not Jerry Kill, man. He's not, and it's not a knock. Nobody is. Jerry Kill went to Vanderbilt as an offensive analyst, and right away they put Diego Pavia in. And people are probably wondering that don't know, where's Mexico at, man? Where's New Mexico? And look at this kid. He's the SEC player.
You should ask ESPN.
Oh, you know what? That kind of stuff still takes me off, man. Yeah, it used to be kind of funny, but
Yeah.
come on, man.
Now
This is 2024. And
exactly.
you're still misidentifying New Mexico or even New Mexico State as
Yeah,
New Mexico. That's disrespectful to them too.
I agree.
So that those things still go on. So anyway, I think I'm looking at Coach Mendenhall. Maybe Coach Mendenhall's not. He's got to have some fire and brimstone though. We've had guys on like Landrick Brody, Curtis Flakes. Landrick Brody said starters were wanted to be on the kickoff team back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And so Coach Mendenhall has to have some fire and brimstone. He has to. We just don't see when he's talking in front of the press. I'm like stretching to hear what he's saying, man. He's soft spoken, but when he gets between those walls, it's on. It's definitely on. So I'm looking for him to have the same effect that Jerry Kill did at New Mexico State. I know he can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because I watched that press conference from the other day, and you're right. I mean, he's monotone, just straight to the point. In some questions, and then other questions he'll just kind of talk your ear off. But talking with the boys, it sounds like once he's in between the walls with those guys, like he turns it on, and he's just everything. I mean, I can't get too much into it, but the thing with Coach Bronco that I love is that his professionalism, and that he's always, no matter what it is, he's putting these guys in a position to be successful, whether it be on the football field or he's doing the best of his ability, and he's getting these kids to believe. I mean, it's hard to describe with him because he's so passionate as far as developing young men into leaders. And I think we're seeing it right before our eyes. I mean, you look at, just look at the offense, last week, with Arizona, where, he's always putting these guys in positions to be successful. I mean, yes, as the defense these last 2 weeks had a pretty rough go at it. Absolutely. I mean, no one's going to deny it. I'm sure he probably wouldn't either. But the thing that I love about Bronco is that it's, eyes are always forward. Like, hey, let's fix what we got, going on, and let's improve. And so I've been nothing but impressed with Bronco. I think I said it before in here. I still kick myself for barely missing him by 1 year, being able to play for him, just to be able to learn. But from the guys that I've talked to in the past, though, like, Nick Spiegel and some of the other defensive guys like Fala Fashola, guys that, came in under him as a recruit. I mean, they had nothing but terrific things to say about Coach Mendenhall, and that he was such a competitor. I mean, he was intense in practice. He would push these guys to the limit, and, he's doing the same thing he is now, with this guy's, basically round 2 here at UNM.
I have changed my tune on him as I was sitting at the press conference on Monday. I thought, I'm trying to think of like I don't want to have him play a villain, but I was trying to think of any villain in movies that is like monotone and like kind of, I mean, he says like gosh and gee golly, and then I'm thinking like behind the scene, like behind the scenes he's like slitting throats and stuff.
Yeah,
obviously
he's like,
not that intense, but
yeah.
Every other word is mother.
Yeah.
I think and his football IQ, not to ramble on here and I'll let you go, but he has to know the defense is like, we have to be schematically better. And I know Saturday wasn't exactly, they knew what they were going up against. And I think it probably went the way he might have thought it was going to go. But I'm more optimistic now than I was 3 or 4 weeks ago. Let me tell you, I was sitting here in this room watching this TV,
right,
thinking they could pull this off, and we're probably was going to text you like, do you want to join us at 1 o'clock in the morning to talk about if they had won, like we probably needed to go live. But obviously the second half dictated that. But anyway, Ben Wysong, he'll join us every week, every Tuesday, or I'm hoping to keep it Tuesday, but former Lobo back and linebacker for the University of New Mexico. Ben, we appreciate your time and your insight, especially that you've got a couple of nephews on the team, but we always look forward to joining us. And I know how excited you are to join us, and that's real. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on tonight. Yeah. I know we got the bye week coming up, but looking forward to next time, and, getting down to Auburn and go check out that environment and see the Lobos put on a show. Hopefully.
Are you going to that game?
We're going to that game. So I think we're flying out
Okay.
Friday and coming back Monday or Sunday. Yeah, Friday to Sunday.
Gotcha.
So I think we're getting in early on Friday. So I think we'll have like most of Friday be able to kind of go check out. We're flying into Birmingham though, so we still got to make a bit of a drive. I think it's like an hour and a half or something like that, but we'll be there. So I'm looking forward to that. It's hard to turn down an SEC game.
That's awesome.
I wanted to go, and I think, is it next year, 2026? They play Oklahoma. I've been to Norman. Norman's fantastic.
Yeah,
that will happen.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
that will
forward to that
happen
one too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Next year is Michigan, and I've got a friend who writes for the Detroit Free Press that I wrote. He was a photographer, Junfu Han, who I think is an award-winning photojournalist. I was good friends with him in college when we were at the paper, but he was at everything that Michigan did last year, and then he was with the Lions. He was ready to probably go to the Super Bowl.
Cool.
So that's it. They open up in Michigan next year. I was trying to think of who that was, but
yeah.
Ben Wysong, we appreciate we. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was gonna say we're looking forward to that one just because. So we are unashamed Ohio State fans in our family. Our dad grew up there, so a cousin went to high school with AJ Hawk, which I think is still the coolest thing ever. So and like the nicest guy, but. My wife and I were just talking about earlier about going to that game next year, and it's like I'm telling you right now, is like I'll be wearing either Luke Evans jersey, but I'll be damned if I'm not going to be wearing an Ohio State t-shirt underneath that jersey and just let everyone know.
That's awesome. Hey, we'll bug you next week, and then I'll wish you a safe trip, and then we'll bug you, the week after. We might even, if you're going to be in Auburn, we might have you join our morning house show that Saturday.
That'd be great.
His name's Ben Wysong. My name's Ryan Tamoria Nunez. We'll take a quick commercial break, and Ed and I will wrap this thing up, and I will get to your comments. Ben, thank you as always.
Thank you, guys.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
We appreciate Ben Wysong for joining us, and I know how excited he is to join us every week. It's fantastic. Ed, you're queuing up a guest for tomorrow night. We'll be coming to you live tomorrow night at 7. And I will let Ed take over right here for the high school football player you have on tomorrow night.
It's Rio Rancho quarterback JJ Ariano. The Rams beating Clove. They're 2-0. They beat Atrisco Heritage 54-15 to open the season. Beat Clovis this past Saturday 50-0. JJ Ariano, our guest in that game, threw for 4 touchdowns. Only played about 2.5 quarters. So he's been the quarterback there 2 years now, and he's been a part of the program for 3 years. And my son and I are really looking forward to talking to him tomorrow. And we're going to try to go around the football metro area for some matchups coming up this week. And what we've seen so far. La Cueva, big win over Pinnacle in double overtime, 39-32. in Phoenix and Flagstaff on Saturday, and they were down. They looked like they were going to lose, and I think that's a big win for La Cueva, of course, and for Albuquerque football. A lot of people, don't give Albuquerque football a lot of credit outside of New Mexico, outside of the Artesias and the Roswells and Cleveland, and now La Cueva coming away with a big win on Saturday night in double overtime. So looking forward to having JJ Ariano on as our guest tomorrow night.
I'm looking forward to that. I was trying to pay more attention to high school football. I have not done that other than going to West Mesa and St. Pius, but I'm looking forward to, and I need to keep track of it, because I was going to try to watch the My 50 game of the week every week, just to become more acclimated. I don't pay attention to high school sports as much as I wish I could. When you have football, the NHL, and college basketball going on at once, and then in October you've got the baseball playoffs, and I'm having to watch the Mets every day now for the next 24 games because they are in the thick of the wild card race in the National League. But I want to pay more attention to high school sports. But when I see, obviously, when they beat a team from Arizona, I was like, holy moly, that's big news. And I wanted to I'm going to get to some comments, and I'll get our final thoughts. Appreciate you joining me a little bit later tonight. And I will start. J-Rod, I didn't think I got to you. J-Rod 17. First thing first, Diego Pavio, what a way to start the year. Thought so too. We already mentioned that. John Romero, Diego, my man. Brett Newberry, entertaining Lobo game against Arizona. Unfortunately, the Arizona receiver was too much for the Lobos. Could not understand why the Lobos did not double team the receiver. The good news, the Lobos have a QB. According to Bronco Mendenhall, they kind of threw the kitchen sink at McMillan and just didn't know what to do. In the first half, Lobos against Arizona showed up against, if Ben's watching this, he will be very happy. If the first half Lobos against Arizona show up against NMSU, we'll be in trouble. I really, really, truly believe that this year. And John, you know how I am. Devin Dampier is quite special. Ronnie Chavez, Cam Ward is not a good QB. He has all the talent, but he throws off his back foot, just flings the ball, and his accuracy is not that good. His launch angle is unusual. I will give you that. I think Ronnie, we disagree here. He might not be a stellar NFL quarterback, but right now for Miami and rejuvenating that, I'm all about it. I've never been there, and I love I used to despise Miami, and then when I watched the U and the U Part 2, the 30 for 30 documentary, I completely changed my tune. And Ben's going to kill me for this, that 2002 BCS National Championship game, man. Whoo. Love me some Pit Press, Dave Frescas. We appreciate you. And then I got to go to my main man.
Mr. Hutz, why are you burning all your personal papers?
As of this moment, Lionel Hutz no longer exists. Say hello to Miguel Sanchez.
Say hello to Miguel Sanchez. Lobos battle, Dampier and Arizona receiver next level. David, not sure about all that, Ryan. I'm going to gather that was on my Devin Dampier being the best player. Ronnie, I'll get to that in a bit. Let's enjoy Dampier this year. He's going to play his way out of Albuquerque. We'll talk about that tomorrow night. Devin Dampier, best QB since Donovan Portery. D4 is the man. Yeah, DD4. Double D4. Devin Dampier reminds me of Jalen House, the way his emotions showed after his first interception and the way he was out there doing ball fakes and just balling. Ed, I want to know what your thoughts are on that comment by Ronnie Chavez.
You know what? There's some similarities there for sure. That fake on the option, that brought me out of my seat. And again, I had to be kind of quiet because my granddaughter was asleep. But there's some definite similarities there. I think that's a good comment by Ronnie.
The first thing I thought of was the Michael Jordan, like when he would put, I don't know. Anyway, we probably have some younger people watching that are like LeBron, I won't have that argument here. John Romero, Lobos defense has more holes than my underwear. Of the secondary tripped on his feet going one-on-one with a stud receiver. I'm about to give you great live internet. I told Jacob Neff I had Popeyes earlier that day, and Popeyes was more brutal on me than the Lobos and the Arizona offense on the Lobo defense. I love this name, the real fake Elton Musk. Luke reminds me of Cole Beasley. I hope he's not as a bad rapper as Cole Beasley. John Romero, the Arizona quarterback and wide receiver combo, reminded me of Jim Everett and Vince Warren. You guys have to give me credit. Vince Warren was on the.
Yeah. Wait a sec. Back up that. What did you say about Cole Beasley now? What did you say? I didn't hear that.
What did I say? Oh, he was a rapper. He raps, and it's terrible. I'm not dissing his slot receiving ability.
Yeah.
He was a rapper.
I didn't know he rapped. I had no idea.
Yeah, he rapped. I don't know. It wasn't very good. John Romero, the Arizona quarterback and wide receiver combo, reminded me of Jim Everett and Vince Warren. Vince Warren, remember the 1986 New York Football Giants that won Super Bowl 21 for El Dorado Eagles. Both Jim and Vince went to the NFL with the Rams and Giants. Ed, I got to ask you about that one because I wasn't even alive.
No, Jim Everett and Vince Warren won the state championship in 1981 for El Dorado. Everett, of course, going to the Los Angeles Rams and went to Purdue and then went to the Rams. And Vince Warren, I can't remember where Vince went to college at, man. But he played also basketball for El Dorado and then played, did he go to San Diego State? He might have. I can't remember.
San Diego State. I looked it up, yeah. But I knew he was a member of the Giants.
Yeah, and then he went and played. He wasn't a big-time receiver with the Giants, but he got a ring. I don't remember him having a huge impact, but he still got a ring, man. That's all that matters. And, of course, Jim Everett, a longtime quarterback, and body slammed Jim Rome that time when Jim Rome called him Chrissy Everett.
Check that, Chris Everett.
Yeah, called him Chris Everett, and that was a classic.
That was you, Ed. Jimmy H., haven't heard from you. The Wysong family is liberal royalty. Yes, they are. Brown Sugar, Gen Z here, and the Michael Jordan was the truth. I'm gathering you mean Michael Jordan. All right. Tomorrow night again. I'm sorry, the guest again, Ed.
JJ Ariano, Rio Rancho Rams quarterback. Rams are 2-0, and they're rolling right now, and we're really looking forward to talking to JJ.
I'm looking forward to that interview again. We'll start tomorrow night at 7. And then tomorrow night, I bugged Jared Chester today. He didn't text me back, or unless I forgot to text him back, we're going to try to have him on. I'll bug him next week. Nick Francis Ford Coppola, so I can pronounce his last name right. Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News will be joining us tomorrow night. We'll break down whatever the hell that was against SEMO, Southeast Missouri. That was, goodness, that was horrendous. I had that game on for a bit. Again, they're probably figuring it out. I don't know. I think NMSU is going to miss Diego Pavia and Jerry Kill. That's not the most intellectual comment, but I'm just throwing it out there because that was night and day. And I'm thinking about Rob Schneider and the Water Boy, where, oh no, we suck again because, geez, that was not good. And then they get Liberty on Saturday night. Have fun with that. Be interesting if they can compete in that game. Ed, do you have any other final thoughts?
No, you know what, Ryan, I just got to say this. I think New Mexico is an improved football team, and hopefully we'll see that in the win column. It's going to be a tough trek to Auburn in 2 weeks, but I'm enthused by what I've seen so far. I wish they'd have won against Montana State, but even though they didn't win against Arizona, I saw some good things. They have a lot of things to work on, especially on the defensive side. But I'm going to say this again. I think Coach Bronco Mendenhall is going to make a huge difference. I really do.
I think he's making a huge difference. And if you're a loyal listener to this show, you've probably heard me question and criticize on a lot of different levels. I know one game doesn't make a season. I kind of thought after Montana State that just doesn't dictate his season, but it dictates his entire tenure here. And then you go on the road, and I know Arizona's missing a lot of people. They have a new coaching staff. We beat that to death last week. I look at the schedule and what I saw out of some of the Mountain West teams. I was not impressed. I'm hoping that this team, if they beat Fresno State or give Fresno State a hard time, I think they're probably looking at five or six wins, with what they can do down the stretch. And I know that sounds bonkers coming out of my mouth, but those words that I have spoken, but with the way Luke plays, the way Devin plays, Eli Sanders, I want to see Andrew Henry. I don't know what's going on there. I thought about that at the press conference. You asked that, Ed. I would love to see him. I'm a little bit more optimistic. I feel like I've taken the Kurt Roth route on this, where last year he was like, I don't want to go watch them lose at Texas A&M, to where he was like, they're a 5-6 win team this year. Like I said, I have said this, they are either a 7-5 team or an 0-12 team, but I don't think they're an 0-12 team. I think Wyoming, Utah State, San Diego State, New Mexico State, Air Force down the stretch, if this team can play a lick of defense and the offense is rolling, man, Washington State scored 70 points. I don't know what they're going to be in November. Holy moly, that's bad. But yeah, I'm a little bit more optimistic because of Arizona. I know that it was their first game, but you put up 39 points like that. And I know I mentioned at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of the show, they've given up 96 points. Well, they've scored 31 and they've scored 62 total points, or excuse me, 39 and 31 total point. My math is terrible. 39, 31 points collectively in both those games. So that's really good. I want to give a shout out before we wrap up here. Follow us on social media at the Pit Press. Where is it? Oh my goodness. Nothing like doing this live. The Pit Press NM on Twitter. I can't find this. We have everything is new here. Follow us on social media on Twitter, the Pit Press NM, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. It's all the Pit Press NM. And again, you feel free to email us any ideas at thepitpressnm@gmail.com. And I got one final comment. Ryan is coming around. Yeah, I'm a little bit more optimistic. I have about a month to probably rip on UNM basketball, and these guys will be optimistic. I like the transfers they've brought in. Mid-Major Madness, our friend Nick Lorenz in there, has Tyson Degenhart as preseason conference, Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. Forgot to touch on that. And you know what I wanted to do now that I'm talking about basketball? Rick just sent me this, and I'm going to have to share it the way it is. Such fantastic live show. There we go. 6'5" small forward. Fine. I don't even have a name there. Holy moly. He's got it down to 5 schools. Hold on. Where's my cell phone? Once again, fantastic. Teammate of TT Carr, and he's another recruit Lobos are after. Let me see. I don't have a name, and this is terrible. I'm going to move on because I don't follow recruiting that closely. Did you guys read Andrew Baus' story about the experience here at University Stadium? I did. I talked to him. We had him on the show, and he absolutely loved University Stadium. He thought it was very kind of old and how it was compact. I've never thought about University Stadium like that, but in reality it is. He thought it was great that it was built in the 60s and it felt kind of old school. So yeah, I'm probably going to have him on at the end of the year. He gave us a shirt. I've been wearing it. It was college football tour. But Andrew Baus was awesome to have on. I forgot where he was this last. He was in Cruces. I think at the SEMO game, but we will have him on again at the end of the season. Jimmy H. Jasir Rencher. Again, I'm sorry, I don't follow it that closely. I learned about these guys when Rick's doing research and Eric, and they all let me know about the recruits. Obviously, I know who what Winters Grady is it? Yeah, so I've learned about him. Boy, I'm not doing a really good job hosting the end of the show. I'll educate myself before we talk about it tomorrow. To everybody listening, we really appreciate all the listeners, over 150 people watching me butcher the recruits. I know he writes. I know he writes for SI. If you can go find that on YouTube. We talked about that. I think he covers TCU specifically. I forgot what the website's called. I don't know if it's not Super Horny or Horned. Or it's Horned Frogs or something. It's not Hypnotoad, but you can find him there. He was awesome to talk to. Again, on on our YouTube page. We got to get going, but everybody have a good Tuesday night and have a good Wednesday. We will talk to you tomorrow, and we will push out the show starting at 7 tomorrow night. Everybody have a good one.
Our head coach of our local football program, Bronco Mantel.
The details themselves with the right preparation can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, yeah, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.